Hi guys. So I tagged most of you that asked to be tagged in these videos. If I missed somebody, I'm very sorry. I'm certainly not intending to do that. I'm just gonna wait a minute or two and let some people come on here. I want to say that if you're watching this, I am going to post my YouTube link to my new YouTube channel in the comments, so I would greatly appreciate if you would subscribe to that. There is content on that YouTube channel that I don't put here on Facebook. So what I have been wanting to put out there and talk about, I'm creating a curriculum, if you will, or a series of trainings on happiness, which is what I've been talking about a lot on Facebook. I've been doing a lot of research on it, and I wanted to pass some of those things along to you. So tonight, I want to talk about being present in your life, in the moment, and mindfulness. So it's something we hear a lot. There's a lot of this kind of guru bullshit out there right now. And if you have little kids, you probably shouldn't have them in earshot of my live videos because it's just not guaranteed that I'm not going to curse. Hi, Stacy. I love when my wife watches my live videos from downstairs. That's my favorite. Anyway, so being present and mindfulness. So what I've been studying is and I'm going to say it wrong, so if anybody on my Facebook is from Denmark or speaks Danish or Norwegian, don't make fun of me. I'm doing the best I can. It's spelled Hygee, but it's pronounced hug, like a weird way to say hug, right? Hug is what it's called. And what that is it's an atmosphere, it's an experience rather than like things. Does that make sense? It's a moment or like a state of being. Hug is that moment at sunset that you're like, you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, that was the most amazing sunset. Or that moment where you're reading a really good book by the fire. And I'm sorry, but I'm actually going to silence these because it distracts me when you guys talk. And I will come back and answer all the comments later, I promise. So hug is that feeling that you get in one of those really good moments where you're sitting on the beach and you're like, have that deep sigh moment and you're just happy, right? That's hug. And the whole point of this series of conversations I want to have is about how to get more of that in our life. I'm a little obsessed with happiness. I want to be happy. I want people around me to be happy. And I believe, as most of you know who have watched any of my content, that everything in our life is up to us and we have complete responsibility for it. And so happiness is that too. And it doesn't come naturally. It's not organic. It's not something that just shows up. So if you see people in your life and you're like, wow, they're so happy, they're so lucky. No, they're not lucky. They did stuff to get that way. They did specific things to get that way. And so when I started thinking about that, I started thinking about Denmark, honestly. Denmark is the happiest country, studies say, in the world. Well, why? They didn't just happen. Okay, Denmark does specific things that make it happen, and we'll go into that later. But anyway, tonight I want to talk about being present. So, but before I do that, hug, like I said, it's that thing, that ish, right? When you're having apple pie at your grandma's house as a little kid, or the moment you see somebody that you've missed so long and you give them a big hug, that's hug, those feelings. So subjects that we're going to talk about that cover that are atmosphere, presence, equality, gratitude, harmony, comfort, truce, togetherness, and shelter. All of those things are what you need in your life to create hug, is what the word is, or happiness, if you will. So before we can really dive into hug, though, and how we get it, because there's no point in getting it if we don't notice that we have it, right? Does that make sense? So there's just little point to working so hard to get all this happiness and not pay attention to it. So I believe presence and mindfulness is first. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Some reasons to figure out how to be more mindful. It reduces stress. These are by the way, these are scientific studies. It's proven. People that are more mindful and more present in their life have less stress. It boosts your immune system. It physically changes things in your body. It reduces chronic pain. It lowers blood pressure. It helps people cope with disease. Cancer patients, they teach how to be more mindful and present in the moment. Some side effects: happier, higher self-esteem, reduced impulsivity, which is great, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because impulsivity is a big part of emotional eating. So yeah, being present, it's important. But how do we get it? How do we become more present? Is there a checklist? I always want a checklist. I always want a list of things I need to check off and do to get whatever it is that I want. That's how my brain operates, okay? So how? It's always the question. I would say a real concrete thing, first of all, is this has to be practiced in your life. You have to set an intention to practice this in your life for it to start coming naturally. It's not just going to happen, okay? It just isn't. So the first thing, though, is you need to stop thinking. And I know you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Stop thinking. Mindfulness is not about you. When you're being mindful and present in the moment, it's really just not about you. It's about everything. And you're like, oh, Melissa, that's just so ridiculous and such a Buddhist, be everything. We are all the universe. But it's true. It's really not about you. Noticing what's happening around you, what's in the room, what does it smell like, what does it taste like, what do my feet feel like on the floor? That's literally mindfulness. That's literally being present. Mindfulness is the only intentional, systematic personal development activity that is not about trying to improve yourself or get anywhere. It's simply a matter of realizing exactly right where you are. So there's something about that that's a little comforting. For those of you out there who practice personal development, who read about it, who listen to podcasts, who do the TED Talks, sometimes that gets a little overwhelming, right? Like all this stuff we have to do. We have to do this, and we have to be good parents, and we have to, all these goals I have to have. Guess what? Mindfulness is not a goal. You don't have to worry about any of that. Mindfulness and practicing this is just being in the moment. And it sounds a lot easier than it actually is. So focus on the present. That's another really important key. The future is totally a construct, guys. What happens tomorrow is something made up in your head. It hasn't happened yet. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You might fall asleep tonight and die. That's just the reality. The future is absolutely a construct. It's you making up stories in your head, and the past is gone, so it's just gone. Most of our joy is robbed from focusing too much on the past or on the future. And most negative thoughts come from focusing on the past or the future. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been on vacation? Let's say you have a week's vacation. You're in Mexico at a beautiful resort, and you went from Saturday to Saturday, and you were so happy all week. And then Thursday hits, and you're laying on the beach, and you say something to the effect of, oh, this is really great. I can't believe it's almost over. Okay, that's not being present, not being mindful, and that's living in the future. And it's robbing your joy from that moment. You're not noticing how the sand is feeling on your feet, how the sun is feeling on your face, how the waves sound, and how beautiful it is where you are. You're thinking about things in the future that you think are going to happen. Think about that. Especially think about that next time you're in a really enjoyable moment. So it's really important to savor the moment, and it focuses you in on the present. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is flow. Flow is really important. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but flow is I know it's happened to you. It's happened to everybody. Flow is that moment when you're so engrossed in an activity that you lose track of everything. Okay? When you're in flow, as your attentional focus narrows, let me give you an example first. So flow is like when I paint. I love to paint. I can paint for hours. I won't talk. I won't eat. I don't do anything except for focus on that. And 3 hours will get away from me and I have no idea where it went. That's flow. That happens to musicians when they're writing music. It happens to people at work, people who enjoy their work. They get involved in it and then it's like, oh my gosh, I've been here 6 hours. How did that happen? That's flow. You want flow in your life. It feels good. I want more flow. But here's the thing. You can't just create flow. It doesn't really work that way. You have to kind of set a stage for it. So here's what you do to set the stage for flow. You need clearly defined goals, and they need to be challenging enough that you're firing on all cylinders to get it done, but that they're still attainable. Does that make sense? So let's talk about a mountain climber, somebody who climbs mountains. I have to silence that. Let's say I'm a mountain climber, and my goal is to climb. I don't know. I'm not a mountain climber. Mount Washington. Do people climb that mountain? It's a name I know. And so that's a clear and defined goal. Okay. The other part of this, to get into flow, to set the stage for flow, is you need to have direct and immediate feedback. So as a mountain climber, for example, I'm climbing the mountain. If I put my foot in the wrong foothold, I'm going to get direct and immediate feedback. I'm going to know I did that wrong, and I'm going to correct. That's all part of flow. Same with, like, say you're a concert pianist and you're trying out a new song. You get direct and immediate feedback when you hit the wrong note on the keyboard. So, but that's flow, and flow comes from being really present in the moment. When you're in flow, as your attentional focus narrows, self-consciousness completely evaporates. You feel as if your awareness merges with the action you're performing. You feel a sense of personal mastery over the situation, and the activity is so intrinsically rewarding. So that even though the task is difficult, the action feels effortless. Have you ever felt like that? It's a great feeling. That's being really present in the moment, in flow. There should be more of this in our lives. So the next thing I think that's important to think about when we're trying to practice being present and mindful is to move towards the things that make you uncomfortable. And I know nobody likes that, but when we feel pain in our lives, when we have a loss, when we have something that makes us sad, we break up with a spouse, we go through a divorce, bad things happen, right? There's stress at work, you get fired from your job, whatever it is. Our tendency as humans is to hide from that and walk away from it, or try to fix it, or try to pretend it doesn't exist. We are told through a lot of our personal development and other things that we're just supposed to, get through it, or have grit, or tough it out, or whatever these other things are. But I think that sometimes if you practice mindfulness and being present, it shortens the duration of those emotions. So the problem with emotions is they're layered. So we don't just feel sad. A lot of times we feel sad about the fact that we're sad, or we feel stressed from work and then we feel sad because we're stressed, or we feel anxiety because we're stressed. Emotions are layered on top of each other. So the more you try to get away from them, the more you screw yourself up. So I would propose that we need to be more present instead of hiding from or trying to solve. Sorry, I'm just turning this up here. Or trying to solve those emotions. We just need to feel it. There's no other way to solve it. If you have a dramatic loss in your life, if you lose a family member, if you lose a beloved pet, if you lose somebody close to you, you're not going to make yourself less sad by pretending you're not sad. You have to feel it. You have to own it. You have to accept it. And it's really important to know that accepting the moment of sadness isn't a defeat or a resignation. It simply means you're being present in the moment. You need to give yourself a little bit of grace. That will shorten the duration of those emotions when you just allow them to be. What I say a lot, give yourself some grace. I say that to people a lot. I'm sure some of you on here have heard me say that to you. Give yourself some grace. Well, really, just give yourself some grace. If you need to have a moment of sadness, have it. If you need to have a moment where you're just not productive, where you just need to stare at the wall and just be upset or feel stressed, then do that. Be present in that moment, though, and feel that emotion. Allow yourself to have it, accept it, say goodbye to it. All right, so a couple more things. Mindlessness. So we're talking about mindfulness. There's also mindlessness, and I know that everybody watching this has had this happen to them as well. When you're reading a book and you read the page, you have no idea what the hell you just read, and you read the page again. You have no idea what you just read, and you read the page again. It's happened, right? Does that happen to you? So it's happened to me multiple times. So when you do that, or you're driving to work and you get there and you're like, how did I get here? I totally forget the drive. That's because the way that our brains work is when we tell our brain believes that it already knows everything, it's learned everything from that situation, it doesn't notice things anymore. It sort of goes on autopilot and turns off. That's being mindless. And you're missing out on part of your life. So the way to avoid that is to practice being mindful. Develop the habit of noticing things. For example, speak them out loud. So it might sound silly, but this is all part of practicing mindfulness. So you're driving to work. Oh, the trees are turning colors. It's fall. There's a guy on the side of the road. You know, he has an ugly orange jacket on, or whatever it is. But you need to notice things as you're going along, or your brain just thinks that it already knows it, and it will literally stop paying attention to everything. You need to make, like I said, make it a habit of noticing new and different things. Once we acquire that habit, we start to notice that the world is constantly changing and we're more present in the moment. So I'm not saying that it matters that the guy is standing on the side of the road in an orange jacket. I'm saying that if you start creating that habit in your life, it teaches your brain to constantly keep noticing things and makes you be more present in life. So the last thing I want to tell you, and I appreciate you watching this, and I hope that it added some value to your day, is that mindfulness is not a goal. Goals are for the future. You do need to set an intention to be mindful, but you can't attach a goal to it. As you're listening to me now, I want you to become more mindful. Think about the way my voice sounds, what the device in your hand you're holding feels like, what it literally feels like. What smells do you smell around you right now? I want you, if you're standing up or sitting down, feel the gravity holding you to the earth. Do you feel that? Think about it. You don't think about it very often because it's just something your brain already knows. Think about what it feels like, your foot on the ground or your legs on the chair. Close your eyes and feel yourself breathe. All right, so if you're feeling you're breathing in and out right now, you're living in the moment. Nothing happens next. There is nothing next to mindfulness. That's it. There's no destination. This is it. You're already there. You did it. So if you take a few moments every day, set an alarm in your phone to tell yourself to practice mindfulness, do it 4 times a day for a few weeks and see what happens in your life. See what changes. Set an alarm, like I said, and for that moment, that minute, that 2 minutes, look around and see what's out there. The way that you do that, and also the way they teach you the fastest way to stop an anxiety attack, by the way, same way they teach you, is your 5 senses. If you want to become present and mindful right this second, what do I hear? What's one thing I hear? I hear the hum of the computer. What's one thing I see? I see the light from my monitor. What's one thing I smell? I smell my candle that's burning back there. What's one thing I see? What's one thing I can taste? If you do that in your moment that you've reminded yourself to be mindful and you practice that regularly, you're going to find that you are mindful more often and it becomes more natural. Anyway, I hope that this added a little bit of value to your day, guys, and I hope everybody has a fantastic night.